Hi friends, it's Unicorn, and today I want to bring you a recommendation of 10 short books. They don't have a common theme or anything, but each of them has their own uniqueness. So if I would say there's one common trait of these books, is that every one of them is wonderfully weird. There's nothing like these books, although I would like to read more of each, but I just love their originality and they all give me a lot to think after. And on top of that, all of these books are on the shorter side. The longest one is about 230 pages-ish, but most of them are under 200 pages, so they are great to read in one sitting. The first one is The Iliad Christ by Cristina Rivera Garza, translated by Sarah Booker. This is a book about an unnamed narrator who works in a hospital located off the beaten path. On a dark and stormy night, two mysterious women invaded the narrator's house and started to dominate it little by little, and they even developed a language of their own. Moreover, they questioned everything about the narrator, especially on gender and identity, and everything that the narrator's words is built on started to dissolve. This book is sending out eerie vibes, and everything seems to have multiple meanings, and with story going on, the narrator and the reader like us will find ourselves are sucked by this invisible power, which is a fascinating experience. However, because I read the English translation, I missed out on a lot of the linguistic designs that the author intended to do when she wrote the books in Spanish. Spanish is a language with gender. There's gender to different words, especially for nouns and adjectives, and English doesn't have those at all. So I heard in original Spanish, the gender of the words are all fluid and all part of the play, but it's kind of lost in this context during translation. So this is a book that I for sure will reread when my Spanish is up to the level. Next, I want to recommend Hotel Silence by Audur Olafsdottir, translated by Brian FitzGibbon. This book is about a man called Jonas whose world just collapsed. His wife left him and his mother is slipping into a dementia, and his daughter is not the person that he thought she was. So he decided to end his life and bought a one-way ticket and booked a hotel in a country which is war-ravaged and very chaotic. And in that hotel, he of course met some locals and started to learn about their life, especially their life during the wartime, and started to know about life a little bit. This book is only 149 pages, but it got me thinking so much about existence, wartime, and even civilization. I especially like the social commentaries that the character made in the story, and especially about women's life during wartime. I think it's something very smartly planted and very important to bring up in such a setting. And the book tackles on the meaning of life by comparing people's attitudes to life between the people who relatively has more resources and more wealthy to people who literally have nothing. But every time I talk about this book, I want to make it clear that we cannot dismiss people's mental struggle just because they have more materials. I read this with a book club, and this question was brought up when we're discussing, so I feel like it's important to address that. The third book on this list is Mrs. Caliban by Rachel Ingalls. This is such a peculiar story, and I feel like it can be a hit or miss, but personally I enjoyed it quite a lot when I was reading it. And this book started with Dorothy, who is Mrs. Caliban, and she was doing some housework when her husband is away for work, and she heard from the radio that a gray monster is at loose in her town, and she had the sense that the monster might have something to do with her. The monster stirred some serious event in her routinely peaceful life. This book is quite plot-driven, and it has many twists and turns. Some of them are not expected at all. I feel like the understanding of the story of Mrs. Caliban, the monster, and also other characters are entirely up to you. But personally, I read the story as a story longing for excitement, longing for jumping out of the limitation, and for the braveness that we can have when we're facing the truth in life. No matter what you think about the story, I think you can't go wrong with such a unique book. Following, I have Doppler by Erlend Loe, translated by Don Bartlett and Dong Shang. This book I have such a complicated relationship with. I didn't like this book initially, and I only gave it 2 stars because I just cannot stand the protagonist. I feel like he is ridiculous, and everything he does drives me crazy, and he is just I don't know, I just want to punch him sometimes. And now you may wonder, why am I still recommending it and putting it in this video? Well, it's because I'm not sure. After discussing it with my book club, I feel like the disgust I have to the main character and to the book might be the point of this book. The author is actually known for his satire and his social commentary and his sharp views on things, and maybe driving readers crazy by the protagonist is what the book is intended to do. Anyhow, the story is about a man who one day decided to abandon his life and especially his wife and go living in a tent in the woods because he is fed up with the civilization, with modernization, and just want to let everything go. And he adopted a baby moose by accident and also started to do all the ridiculous things that enraged me. The main reason I hated him so much is just because there's so many contradictions between his actions and his intentions, but they also can be just irony. The book is only 176 pages, and I feel like the unsureness of my feelings to the book really makes it stand out. If you are interested in reading it, please let me know. So I'm dying to discuss about it more. Next up is My Sister, the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This book was shortlisted for Women's Prize for Fiction in 2019 and it's quite hyped when it first came out. And now I feel like the hype kind of dialed down, so I'm hoping to bring it back to the surface a little bit. The title of the book says a lot about the story. One day the protagonist got a phone call from her sister and she knows exactly what's coming. Her sister must have killed another of her boyfriend and she kind of expecting it after her sister started dating. But everything started to change after her sister started to date a doctor in the hospital where the protagonist works. This book is about desire and about twisted mindset, about twisted sisterhood and how far that beauty and privilege can take you. It's very fun to read if you go into it expecting a twisted psychological novel. Then there's a book that I cannot stop recommending ever after I read it is The Memories by Chi Ta-wei, translated by Ari Larissa Heinrich. This is a classic queer science fiction written in 1995. The story is set in the future in late 21st century and centered around a protagonist called Momo, who is a well-respected dermal care technician lives in an isolated kind of situation. And from her seemingly lonely life, we started to discover the background story of her and also the stories about the people around her. This book is very interesting because everything is fluid in the book. It plays around with gender, with identity, with sexuality, and breaking all the boundaries. When I was reading this book, I literally started to questioning everything. And this book is very reflective and has many metaphors that keep you interested in study the meaning of them. Another interesting experience when reading this book is because the book is written in the past about the future, so it has a lot of predictions about the future. But now in 2022, when reading it, we can clearly see some of the predictions came true and some of them are completely outdated. So all of these added additionally to the fun of reading the book. Next, I have The Faster I Walk, the Smaller I Am by Cristina Annesdatter Skomsvold, translated by Kerri A Pierce. Protagonist is never good at dealing with other people. The only thing she accomplished is her longevity. Not only her relatives died before her, but everyone she read about in the obituary died before, younger than she is now. Afraid of dying without leaving a mark in the world, she started to reach out to her uncomfortable zone and trying to go out in the world and make connections with people and living her life to the fullest. This is a book about awkwardness and people's insecurity about life and explore the idea of life and different meanings and possibilities of it. When reading it, it feels like you have a short encounter with the main character and learns a little bit about her life, which is both happy and sad at the same time and also very relatable. Following, I have another strange one is The Appointment by Herta Muller, translated by Michael Hulse and Philip Boehm. This is a very dark story set in Romania during the Ceausescu's totalitarian regime. A young factory worker is on her way to an interrogation because she sold a note on the collar of a shirt that they exported said marry me. The whole novel happened during the time she took the tram to the interrogation, but it's more like a stream of consciousness kind of story. On the way, she reflects on her life and her relationship with her friends, her family, and the society. The society is horrifying. Everybody is spying on everybody, and it is the worst that a totalitarian regime can bring out from people. The book created a very dark atmosphere and a sinister feeling about everyone and everything. I wouldn't say that I enjoyed this book when I read it because it seems like a wrong word choices for books like this, but I would say that I would for sure miss out if I haven't read it. Next, I have a much more delightful book. It's a book that I loved for many years, and I have been talking about it non-stop. It's The Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Malata, translated by Jenny Tapley-Tagimoli. This book is about a 36-year-old woman called Keiko who works in a convenience store for 18 years, which is considered a temporary job for many, but Keiko actually enjoys her full-time working here for many years. However, she faced a lot of pressure from her family and peers. It's wonderful to get to know Keiko's characteristic and get to see how she figuring the things out of the world. And she kind of deconstructed the contemporary world a little bit and also rethought the role of humans in society. The last book in this recommendation is a recent find, and I kind of feel like I've recommended it a little bit more in recent videos, so that's why I put it in the last. It's The Strange Beasts of China by Yan Ge, translated by Jeremy Tang, the English version. This is an urban fantasy set in the fictional city called Yong'an in China, where the protagonist is a cryptozoologist who is set commissions to discover the untold stories about the beast, because Yong'an is a city where human beings live alongside of fable beasts. This is a very intriguing and immersive book because it has different layers of mysteries in it, and you just cannot help but finding out more and more and coming to the final reveal, which is quite a surprise. I enjoyed the story a lot, and I also like the delightful writing style of the book. I also like that how it seems to be inspired by a lot of Chinese mythology, but it keeps its originality and it's very authentic. And that's all the books I want to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed this recommendation of all the lovely books you can read in one sitting. Maybe with a cold drink in a summer afternoon, or with a hot chocolate if it's winter where you are at. Please let me know any of your thoughts about these books. Do you plan to read them? Have you read them? And also, if you have any recommendations about shorter books that people can read in one sitting, please leave a comment down below, and also don't forget to say hi. Thumbs up to this video if you liked it. I wish you happy reading, stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you in my next bookish video. Bye!